Hello and welcome to Geopier.news. Today we've got an interview with Professor Nisha Tanjay and Miss Sanja Joshi from the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. They specialise on India's foreign and economic relations and live and work in New Delhi. Enjoy!
India was accused of uh, alleged assassination against someone in Canada, and India might potentially, or some people see India as moving away from the West and sort of positioning itself as a deal broker for the whole world, but more representing like the global South. How do you think Modi meeting with Putin a couple of weeks ago has like an impact on that? And obviously we've already spoken a little bit about how India is positioning itself as like the deal broker between the two.
Sanjana, you want to take that? Well, I don't know about deal broker, but yeah, I think the Prime Minister Modi's administration would be very happy to take on the role of a mediator in global affairs, and especially with more so with a reduced majority, because if you need to show successes, that's where your successes are more likely and more easily probably going to come from, because domestic challenges are quite a lot, and since you don't have the strong majority to push through measures that you might need to take, the successes may not be so easily available to be presented to the people. So definitely, that's why you saw that, and despite reduced majority and everything, one of the first trips Prime Minister Modi took was outside the country to the G7 summit, So definitely they would like to play a role over there. And they do see that, they do feel that it's not a new thing, but India is actually taking its rightful place as a global power on the head table. And so they are quite keen to get involved in all these issues. So we might see them being much more proactive over there. Now, in terms of, the example you used, like alleged assassination, etc., we don't know for sure exactly what's happened over there. Neither have the Canadians really been very forthcoming in terms of evidence. They're more like allegations right now to all of us. Even if they do get proved, I think it would prove nothing more than the fact that India is just being very sort of muscular in its, approach to dealing with its national identity and, national power. It doesn't mean that, they're going to become a CIA and go around sort of organizing coups or whatever across the world. It's more to do with dealing. It's more an Israel kind of approach, to deal with your so-called perceived threats or enemies, rather than an American CIA kind of approach, which is to sort of put democracy in every corner of the world. So there is a distinct difference between that.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's interesting, to be fair, because I think that's a good point. It's not it is just essentially dealing with internal things with it. They might obviously be outside of the country's boundaries, like physically, but it still influences the country. So I understand for sure. That feeds on to something else I wanted to talk about, and I asked someone else about it not too long ago, and I think it gets blown up potentially over here. But I'm not quite sure. But essentially, there's been like less Muslim MPs since Modi came in, and like more attacks on Muslims and stuff. Is that actually a real problem in India? Is it big, or is that something that gets blown up over here as like just a story that's happening over in India?
The representation of minorities in parliament is a long-standing issue. And minority, I would include women, because in the sense that they also we do have the law which is now being passed, but when it's actually going to get implemented in terms of 33% reservation for women, we don't know. So there are definitely a great number of groups which would benefit from greater representation in Parliament, and there is no doubt that there is a definitely undercurrent of majoritarianism which exists in Indian politics today, and but I mean all parties at the end of the day. So I think it would be wrong to sort of single out one. When it comes to taking votes, the others are equally ready to jump onto the sort of religious bandwagon, and then they give fuel to the majority community in terms of so-called appeasement. So these are political sort of issues, definitely an undercurrent of majoritarianism, which is getting more prominent in India. Now, whether it's going to translate into large-scale violence is, at least I'm not, I don't see it like that. I won't even say that I'm not sure. I don't see it like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I think from all the information I've picked up from actually asking people that are on the ground and know the situation properly, have said pretty much the same thing. I think it definitely gets, or maybe definitely is strong, but probably gets blown up over here as being like, oh, it's this and that. But yeah, and thank you very much.
You're seeing the kind of, I mean, how this kind of, when identity issues get entwined with majority minorities, this is how it plays us across the world. In the UK itself, again, you're seeing like this now. Those riots in Leeds, they really had nothing to do with the subcontinent. It was the Roma community whose child was taken, but it came across to the world like whether that it was predominantly people of Muslim origin who were rioting over there because those were the pictures that you saw on the screen. So it's very difficult to separate these things when identity issues get identified with majoritarianism or minority politics.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost impossible because, like you said, in Leeds, it was all immediately after. It was all like you said, and then a couple of days afterwards, you actually figured out, oh no, it was a different community. So, yeah, finding the truth on these things is almost impossible. But thank you for helping me. I wanted to touch on as well. I want to ask you: is there anything that you think you would like to talk about from an Indian perspective on a foreign policy or economic level that you think is something exciting that is coming up?
I think it's more of the same, which is that I think it is being done more at a bilateral level. At the global level, I think the only thing that we've actually talked about is trying to be is for the global south. And I think yours is getting the African Union as part of G20. And I think that's a very, very significant contribution that India made during its presidency. So, in terms of foreign policy, yes. So, whether it's with Russia or whether it's with the US or whether it is, so it's becoming more like a uh, bilateral deal rather than with a group of countries or.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if it's much easier to agree bilaterally, isn't it, than turning up to the G20 and everyone not really being on the same side. So, yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Right, and it's easier to talk about give and take when you're just two partners, or at most if you're a three country, if it's a partnership. But when it becomes a larger group, the give and takes are that many more permutations and combinations. So to agree amongst that many members becomes that much more difficult. So I think that's what.
Yeah, I think from from the government's point of view or from a country's national interest point of view, the interest in that sense, it's a departure from the past, is that India has been, and how well, I mean, and for that we have to give credit to this government, is that how well it has been uh, between various contradictory, stances and issues in the global arena in the last few years, given the kind of challenges that everybody has faced. So, in a sense, I mean, if we look at it in a historical context, we can easily define it as a continuation of India's stand in terms of being non-aligned. But it's now more a balancing role from a position of strength, and the focus is on maximizing India's own interests. So we go wherever and do whatever it needs to be done to make sure that our economic interests don't suffer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's in a sense a departure from the past.
Yeah, it's a good method to, well, obviously every country should look after their interests, so it's about time. To be fair, I think UK could learn as well. Just go for it. I wanted to change the subject up a little bit. I know you don't have lots of time, so I'll let you go after this. But one of my favourite sports is cricket, and I was watching the cricket yesterday. Now, India won the T20 World Cup like a few weeks ago. So, how are people still partying because of that, or how did that go down?
People were ecstatic, totally
Yeah,
ecstatic.
there's definitely a lot of euphoria around it, and I think everybody sort of needed it as to cheer themselves up. So yeah, I mean, but I think now the focus is shifted on to whatever next comes on and all. It's like done and dusted. The Indian team itself is going through a lot of changes, with a lot of the senior players deciding to sort of retire. So
Yeah, it's a
I
big
think
time.
India, in terms of sport, I think Indians are much are now looking forward to the Olympics to see, because we've been doing pretty good in the last couple of them. So I think people are no longer fixated on cricket, and now everybody wants to know whether Neeraj Chopra is going to get us the gold again or not.
I
So
know.
that's equally important.
Yeah, it is exciting, to be fair. I think the last few times us lot, Great Britain, we've not done too well. We did well when it was over in London, but I think we've dropped off. So I think you guys will probably beat us again, if anything. But we'll see. It's been a pleasure talking to you both, and thank you very much as well for giving me so much of your time. So really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you.
No worries.
And all the best with your dissertation.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. And Miss Joshi, thank you very much as well. Both of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Best of luck.
Yeah. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
You
See you soon.
too, you too.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Geopier.news. Comment on the video and make sure you read the accompanying article on India where we speak to even more experts. Thanks again.